What's going on, everybody? Canuck here, and welcome to episode 2 of our Course Design 101 series, where today we're going to look at how to plan out and place a fairway and green for our opening hole. So doing a little pre-planning right at the start using the measurement tools can help you visualize the hole you want to lay down and save you a lot of time of having to remake surfaces over and over. So in this video, we're going to check out how to lay down the location for our first hole, plan out a rough idea with the measuring tools, lay down a fairway and green, and explore how to tackle some general land sculpting, as well as explore the various settings attached to each of these surfaces. So if you like this content, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it helps me a ton. All right, guys, let's dive in. So here we are with our plot from episode 1. I really haven't touched this much at all. And if I were going to continue on building a full-on course here, I would be spending a significant amount longer really getting this plot to how I like it, and then finding a general routing before I even think about getting started on any hole designs. But again, we're just looking on how to build holes, so we're not going to do that. I just kind of did a quick zoom around and like, hey, where could I put an opening hole? And I did come across this little corridor here that I think might work. It's going to be kind of more of an uphill par 5. I might use this little hill here. I might put a bunker or two into that hill. It might actually look quite good off the tee. And then making its way around that hill to maybe a slightly elevated green up here. So that actually might not be a terrible idea. So just to get a sense of distance, I'm going to use our measuring tool, which we're going to see a couple uses for this as well. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, you can see me moving my controller around so you can follow my inputs a little more easily. So I may say, okay, maybe my tee shot might start here, and I kind of want this hillside to, I want this to be the landing site. This is about 226, so I might back that up a little bit, and then another uphill shot into relatively shallow green, maybe here. So I think that's our plan. So I might actually start the actual tee shot right around there. So we need to actually lay down the bones of the golf hole first. So remember, we prevented all that auto generation from happening back in episode 1. So when we create holes, we should just be able to, once we throw down our waypoints. So as you can see up in the top there, right, this is about my landing zone, about 278. That's about perfect right now for the driving distances in game. You know, maybe a bit shorter. Doesn't matter too much. This again is quite rough. And then maybe a green somewhere around here. So right now it's sitting roughly at about 445 yards. And again, all we have is a simple flag and then our tee box right here. So we have that down. Now I'm going to show you my other favorite use for these measuring tools. So yes, you can measure depths and widths of your greens and your fairways, but I like to use this also as a tracing tool to kind of get a good sense to help me visualize what this hole is going to look like before I start laying surfaces down. It really helps prevent you from having to redo surfaces over and over, and you can really quickly delete it and draw new things to get a good sense of what you want to do. So I'm going to just be pressing the A button rather rapidly, so I'm creating all of these little tools at once, but I'm using it more as a tracing tool. So right now I'm just kind of tracing a very basic green. And as I'm doing this, I just want to say we're not going to be discussing a lot about course architecture or hole strategy in this video. We're just learning how to use the tools. So this is a very, very basic hole we're looking at. So there's my green. And then maybe I'm going to have a fairway that kind of extends through here. And I want to wrap it around that big hill. So kind of bring it out there and then start bringing it around this hill. Don't worry about all these trees and grasses. We're about to get rid of this in a bit. Now, in order to estimate kind of where I want the fairway to start, I like to have it started anywhere between 175 to 225 yards. So this might be the start of the fairway around here. I might have it kind of out this way and then come back. Any designers familiar with my work know I like a good curved fairway. Kind of a running joke in the community, but hey, I like it and I don't care. So there is a rough look at my green and my fairway. Now I can add in some general bunker ideas too. Maybe just like, oh, here's a bunker. We're not really worried about the shape too much at all right now. Just an idea of, hey, what might this look like? You know, I can now see this is starting to take place, and I haven't even laid down a surface yet. So that's kind of cool there. And I might throw in maybe a couple bunkers here as well. We're going to talk more about bunkers and how to actually sculpt them and stuff probably in the next episode. So I'm going to very quickly do this, and we'll deal with this next time. It's not very good bunkers, but they'll do for now. So there's the general kind of idea of what I want this golf hole to look like. We want to now get rid of all this auto-generated junk in the middle. We can, again, plant things wherever we want later, but in order to remove all this auto-generated stuff, we're going to head into the Sculpt menu. Going to go to Clear Generated Objects. You could just clear the trees or just the objects. I want to clear everything. You can do this via drawing a large spline around it, or you can just do a brush. I'll just show you a spline, which is really easy to use. So this will just get rid of everything that's inside this spline. And that'll give me more of a area to work with, so not as much stuff is in the way here. Just a quick little drawing around. Make sure that little paint can is there, which means I've fully filled in the spline. And now you can see we've gotten rid of all that junk. Perfect. Okay, now we're going to actually start laying down our first surface, finally. So I'm going to head into Create Surfaces, and I like to work backwards, so we're going to start with the green here. And again, you can create any fairway using either a brush, okay, which comes in a variety of shapes, and you can select it, advanced edit, you can make it however you want. Now, I recommend to not use the brushes. I recommend to use the splines. Designers that do use the brushes do kind of get into a habit of a lot of their surfaces start looking the same as they get tied into the same shape, so try to avoid that. I like to use the spline tool, like I said, so I'm going to kind of line it up with my tracing. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, and I might come up with another idea halfway through this anyway. It's okay. So I'm just going to work my way around this. This is going to be... Now, I'm kind of realizing that this green's pretty small, so I might just bring it up here just to make it a little bit larger. I tend to kind of think anywhere from like 100 to 130 yards is a good kind of average size green when you make your way all the way around. This one comes in at 94 yards, so maybe a little bit on the small side, but that's okay. So as you can see, this is obviously an unplayable green, but we'll deal with that in a bit. But I do want to kind of adjust the shape of it a little bit, so I'm going to select one of these spline points or spline handles. And from here, we can do a few things. I'm going to go down to the Edit menu. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth out that spline. So I'm going to smooth the entire spline, make it look a little bit nicer like that. I'm going to do the same thing, select the point, get into the Edit menu, and you can do a couple more things here. You can add, for example, if you want to add a color of rough, you can go to Secondary Surface. You can add any sort of surface you want. But if I want to first cut a rough, I'm just going to go select the light rough. You can also adjust the widths of the light rough, as well as the fringe and things like that through these width menus. Okay. So that is kind of the basics of laying down a green here. And let's not worry about the sculpting yet. I just want to worry about putting down the surfaces. So there's a green. And now we're going to do the same thing with the fairway. It's basically the exact same process. I'm going to select fairway spline and use the edge of the spline to really line up your kind of fringe with the edge of the fairway to create some nice smooth transitions. So once you've done that, just start laying down spline points. I'm going to roughly just follow along with the original trace that I made. You don't have to do too many of these all at once. Okay, kind of like that. I might make it a little bit wider out here. Just like this. Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm going to connect it back in. Again, trying to make a relatively nice, even, smooth transition. And then I'm going to bring it back to the beginning spline. Wait for that little green paint can to show up. Hit A, and that should give me a fairway. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to smooth the spline out. And if I want to continue by having a first cut of rough, because as you can see here, I've got a first cut of rough around my green, but not my fairway. So we're going to do that right now. Secondary surface, light rough, and there we go. So as you can see, it's a nice looking, relatively even transition. Not too bad. Okay, and you can adjust the splines very easily by using this new quick move feature. So you can see the spline is made up of this kind of center point and then these two filled in circles that we call handles. So you can select and adjust kind of from anywhere just by holding down the A button. I find you can do a little bit more by selecting the point. You just move a little bit more, and it makes quick adjustments really, really easy in this game. So it is very, very awesome. Okay, so next we're going to just get into some very basic sculpting. Like, first of all, we need to make this green playable because it's not right now. So we're going to go into the sculpt menu, landscaping tools, and I want to flatten this a little bit. So I'm going to go into landscaping, flatten. And in terms of brushes I like to use, really these two brushes, and I mentioned this in episode 1, these are going to be most of your sculpting is going to be using these fuzzy brushes. So this circular one here on page 4 or this oval shaped one, I use these for the majority of my sculpting. I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. Again, this is kind of what we call macro sculpting. We're doing large amounts here. We're not being super precise yet. We will do that later. But right now, I'm just trying to get this green kind of flattened out. Just kind of like this. We will add breaks and stuff to the green. Well, we can do that in a bit here too. But as you can see there, now the way the beads are a lot slower, this is a pretty flat green now, but we can adjust that later. But this is now significantly more playable. Don't worry about the pin right now. We'll adjust that later. So you can make other landscaping adjustments to your fairways too. Right now this fairway is pretty flat, but if I wanted to add maybe a bit of a hill here on the right-hand side, I'm going to go use my raise tool, and I can pop the edge of it up a little bit, maybe create some camber on this fairway. Not too much. You kind of got to get used to what numbers work for what. The smaller the movements, the better it is, usually. This is just kind of something that comes down to taking time. But yeah, that is a pretty good start there. Now, at some point, these measurement tools start getting in the way, and you can handle that in a couple ways. If you want to actually just delete them for good, actually, I'm not going to show you that first. I'm going to show you how to hide them first. You're going to go into the filters menu. You press Y right here. And we're going to do a little video on filters a little bit later, but just to hide these for now, go down to course layout. And here you can hide a whole bunch of things, but we're just going to hide the measurements. And you want to select it so it's like a little ghost. There we go. So now the measurement tools have disappeared. We might want them after. But the thing is with deleting the measurement tools, you can delete them one by one, or you have to delete all of them. So it's a bit of a pain. Sometimes hiding them might be a better option. So, couple more things just with greens. We can talk about, you can move the pin by, again, holding things down, moving them over. If you want to create extra pins, I imagine you want to create, at least 4 pins. You can select the pin here. You can add a pin, and you can put these wherever you want on your green. You can have up to 4. Maybe I'll put one there, and one there. I would probably sculpt this green before I laid my pins down, but just so you get an idea. And you can also do things like change the flag texture if you want. So there's a few different options. You can do whatever you want there. So if I'm making smaller movements, like if I want to sculpt my green, I can do that again using these little fuzzy brushes. Okay, so maybe if I wanted to make more of a ridge, I might use my oval tool. Maybe I might advance edit it to make it a little bit bigger. And slight movements, nothing too drastic. You want to you don't want things too extreme around your pins. That's a bit of a weird one, but we're getting an idea of what these tools do. We're creating a bit of a funny ridge there. We want to avoid too much of what we call red slopes near the pins. So if that's like that hole is kind of bordering on unplayable. We want to avoid that best you can. Good rule of thumb is try to avoid any red within about a 3x3 grid of your hole. That's a good general rule of thumb. So last thing I want to cover in this video is looking at various settings. So you can change your firmness of your greens, speed of your greens, and you can do this in the course settings by going to green settings here. And here you can change everything from the green textures. So there's a whole bunch to choose from. They all look varying levels of interesting. You may need to mix and match textures with rough and green and fairway and all that, but we're just going to leave those default for now. You can also change the mow pattern of the green if you want to, have this really intense checkerboard. Please don't do that. It looks awful, but you can if you want. You can change the mow width as well. So you can get lots of cool looks there. But again, I don't like greens that look like that, but it's not my course. It's your course. Green firmness, again, you're going to have to do play testing. We'll talk about play testing in a later video, but you don't want to get this too firm because then it gets to be unplayable. Too soft, it gets too easy. So again, you do have to play with it, and depending on how you want your course to play, you do have to find a good acceptable setting there. And then the same thing, green speeds. These are how fast they roll. Again, very fast. This makes all the greens and then all the breaks in the greens significantly more, or a little bit more difficult to deal with. You can see here this little ridge here. If I crank that all the way up to high, you see how we got that red starting to form. But if we bring that to very slow, that disappears. So again, a lot of play testing to really lock in your firmness for your green, and your firmness for your green, and your speed for your green as well. You can do the same thing with fairway. You can adjust texture, mow pattern, fairway firmness, fairway roll, stuff like that. So lots of different tools to play with. So that is our basic kind of start. We got lots to do on this hole still. Next episode, we're going to look into how to add bunkers to your course. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying these videos. And please let me know what you want me to cover next. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.